a while ago, I interviewed Paul, which I'm not even going to try to butcher his last name, but I interviewed him, and he is the owner and the founder of Space Station Labs, which is like this consulting shop and development shop for just startups, where they develop web apps and different other tools for startups. Or well, actually, right now they're trying to make the move into enterprise, and so it's very interesting to kind of see how he started off from initially building MVPs for seed or even pre-seed startups, and he kind of like climbed out the ladder to eventually, working with Series A's and Series B startups, and now going into enterprise. And he really gives out some amazing gold nuggets about how to even find clients, how to fill the top of the funnel for your agency or for your development shop. I think this episode is it's short, but it's good. It's really good. It's packed with useful information if you're trying to start a consulting shop.
30, but like otherwise.
Okay, 30 minutes. We got 27 minutes. Good. Let's go. Okay. You obviously target startups. One thing that I kind of wanted to ask you is if you feel like the niche is big enough, and
Mm.
like it, because it feels like you're really boxing yourself in by focusing your agency only on startups. Like, do you feel like the market is too small, or does it feel still good?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. The short answer is yes, I'm boxing myself in, and that's why I'm also looking at enterprise sales literally right now. So you're absolutely right. But the other thing is, so with enterprise sales, the cycle is really long, right? You have to create this the relationships, and you have to build the trust. So for a small agency like myself, it's actually really hard to break into enterprise sales. Um, so working with founders and like small startups, it's much easier, as in the decision cycle is much shorter. So like it's actually just a continuation of the agency's natural storyline, where you start out with indie hacker projects, MVPs, move up to maybe like series seed or series A startups, and
Yeah.
then eventually for consistent revenue you have to sell enterprise, because enterprise, once you get onto the vendor list, they'll give you call consistently year over year, and that's how you create some kind of recurring revenue as an agency.
Okay. So you think like, okay, this is super interesting because basically what you did is you started out targeting indie hackers, and you sort of moved up the ladder, and they're now trying to make the last push into enterprise. Is that kind of how you've done it so far?
Yeah, exactly, right? So for example, I sold quite a bit of projects on Reddit, and off of Reddit, it's very early stage founders, right? They are aspirational, they just want like a proof of concept, so you're mostly building MVPs for, let's say, $5,000,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you'll actually meet recurring or uh, um, founders who have previously exited. So, like, one of my projects is helping a repeat founder create this like price testing tool for Shopify stores, and they have relationships with like some of the largest Shopify stores, and that's like a much bigger project. But like it's hard to make these kind of connections on the internet, right? So it's a lot of thinking of good ideas to market yourself, putting the timing on LinkedIn, cold email. Uh, but enterprise, it's much more about establishing relationships with the right people, right organization.
Do you have an issue where, like, for example, you target a seed stage, or even a Series A or a bootstrap startup, and it's obviously they're either going to die off, and you've built the MVP or the proof of concept, and now they're gone. You don't ever
Yeah.
come back. In the case, maybe they just completely die off, and that's that. Or there's the few obviously that survive and they go to the next stage, so Series A or Series B or Series C. How often do they actually? Because I'm guessing this is an actual problem where they don't rehire you, not because they didn't like your service, but simply
Yeah.
because people usually like to hire in house for
Yeah.
development.
Yeah. Happens, really, like happens all the time, like 100%, right? So there's for startups, the best time to sell to a startup is actually when they are just expecting to raise their next series.
Oh.
Usually, what happens is when they're about to raise, or they're about 12 to 16 months into their funding cycle, they're starting to run out of money, and they're very aspirational, as saying they're in the crunch time. So the crunch time, that means all of their internal devs are like fully allocated, but they need that extra push to
Yeah.
get whatever feature out the door so that they can go out raising, so that they can show their investors that they've done the work that they promised. So that's actually the best period for agencies to sell to startups.
This is so true. I'm now making a parallel in my mind to a startup which I've worked at, which I'm not sure how much I
Yeah,
can actually say publicly because I was there and I knew some insider stuff. But like
yeah,
you're right, it was exactly this way where they didn't raise in a while. They were about to raise. We were supposed to push this big feature out, which
yeah,
would land us a big investor,
right.
and they did hire two contractors. It
Yeah,
actually did happen exactly this way.
yeah, that's the best time, right? Like it's very aspirational. You can be like, okay, the project definition is very clear. It's like, okay, we need this big feature launched to either get more funding or acquire a big customer, whatever that is. The definition of the problem statement is very clear, and it's an investment for them at that point, right?
It makes sense. It makes sense. But obviously, you have to find them at the exact right time. You have to have built some trust already with them. I know you're big on outreach, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you because I want to do outreach for myself for my consulting business in Web3, but
Yeah,
I'm not very good at it. I basically suck at it entirely. I've sent like
gotcha.
100 plus messages by now, and while I have had warm responses, I still do not have any sort of actual business from it. Uh,
Mm.
so how do you go about finding the leads themselves, and then also how do you approach them? Is it like does your brand already is it a big part of it, or do you is it usually like just very cold? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple of ways, right? There's actually a lot of ways, actually. So for startups, especially if we talk about them, like you can go on Crunchbase, right? Like go on Crunchbase, look at when the last time they raised. If it was around 12 to 16 months between the funding raises, you can make a very educated guess that they're going through this crunch time. And you can just go on Crunchbase or PitchBooks and get a list of hundreds of startups
That's
that's in
fair.
this exact moment of time,
That's
right? And yeah, if you go on Hackers News, you can literally see what companies are hiring. Usually, when companies like startups go through a hiring cycle, they hire a lot of people right after they raise money.
oh
That's when they start introducing people into organizations full time. Make a mental note of that when they're doing this, and then just project that 12 months into the future. That's how you know when
oh
they are on the next funding cycle, right? So like you can literally go on LinkedIn, you can go on anywhere that people hire developers. Hackers News is a great place to do this, right? Just look at startups that's like hiring 20 engineers.
this, no
You
this
know they just raised.
This is insane. I this is like it seems like such a small subtle thing, but also I feel like this is a real golden nugget because it sounds simple, but it like you're right.
Yeah,
If you actually time it this way, you're gonna catch them right when they actually want to hire contractors.
yeah,
And since people raise all the time, you can always look at Crunchbase
yeah,
or News and
exactly.
always establish a pattern. And then it's really just a matter of like you already kind of know there's a good chance they are in the market. It's really just a matter of more so convincing them to hire you instead of somebody else.
Exactly. So that's a sales process, right? So break up, like I highly doubt if you're really good at what you do, your 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 problem isn't really sales. So like break up the marketing part, which is like getting the timing, getting the message, finding the right people, separately away from the sales. The sales is like once you get onto the call with the person, how do you get them interested? How do you project the confidence, project that your competence? So like separate out these two. Don't try to mix like, oh, you know, yeah, so like most of people like us, our problem is the marketing. The marketing is just having good ideas and the understanding how these things work. And usually the answer is really simple, right? Like this, how do you find leads that are startups? It's very simple. It's just look at when they're hiring, project that 12 month. That's when their cycle is starting. Um, and like you said, there's always going to be companies that's raising money.
This
So
is
you're never going to run out of pipeline.
this is insane, and it's crazy because obviously even in crypto most companies still raise VC. I
Yeah,
don't I don't think there's any sort of crypto company. Like maybe there might be a few that are private, but like public, I don't know any sort of, like, most of them have to raise money regardless of where, like,
exactly.
big ones. Even the big ones like Avalanche, maybe not Avalanche, but like even the big ones do have to raise money. So in that case, this would actually work for me as well, which is insane.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
huge.
Yeah, any kind of company that raises VC funds, this is absolutely the cycle. And they're kind of forced to be in this cycle, right? So
Yeah.
like yeah, like the way that I understood this is because I started a couple startups, and you see it very clearly that the VCs want you to run out of money every 12 to 18 months so that you can start this funding cycle again, right? Like they don't want you to be
Yeah.
raising money and then sit on it for like 5 to 10 years. That's then you don't show growth. You don't really like make there's not enough signals in companies like that for them to recuperate their investment. So like
Yeah.
this whole entire system is set up in a way to encourage people to continuously go out fundraising and
Yeah, it
hire
makes
people.
sense because this is the way the VCs actually are able to get more equity if the company is successful.
Exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, this is an insane pattern, which is so obvious when you just told it to me, but it wasn't obvious. I There's other things that I want to talk about. Obviously, like, so like, do you entirely do marketing just by doing cold outreach? Is that your, like, 100% of your clients from cold outreach, or do you also do other stuff as well?
No, not really. So like so it it's like there's cycles in the market, right? Like for example, right now, startups are actually not the best places to be in because the funding cycle is down. Last year was super bad. Even this year, a lot of startups is trying to do less with more, do more with less. They're there's not as liquid amount of money out there, so for a startup with like 4 or 5 years of existence, they went through the pandemic high, and now they're coming down, and they're like being cheap. They're not really willing to spend big money to push out the projects. So right now is actually a kind of a tough market, especially in startups. I would say that's like Series A stage, let's say,
Okay.
because because the funding cycles are longer, and the founders are a little bit tired
Hmm.
from chasing the VCs. So like that's why I'm also doing enterprise sales. But the enterprise sales is really about relationships. So it's just who you know, how you know them, how long you know them. It's a lot of that. So I'm still trying to figure out if cold outreach is still a best way to reach enterprise. My hypothesis is that it's no. It's really about just building your network, talking to people, going to events, etc. Um, Reddit and social media is a good way for you to get inbound. I rely on that a lot just to bridge the gap between projects. And usually, when you get inbound, the people are a lot more receptive in what you
Oh
have to
yeah.
sell.
Oh
Because I
yeah.
mean, they're inbound, right? They
Yeah.
reached out to you.
This is I thought I don't know if you watched it, but a week ago, or 10 days ago or so, I published an interview with Jamin Holmgren from Infinite Red. They're like a big React Native
Yeah, yeah,
consulting shop, and their whole strategy is we're gonna create all this we're gonna create all this open source stuff. We're gonna do all these amazing things in public. People are gonna know about us, and they're gonna know we sell consulting. So whenever they have an idea, they come inbound, and at that point, if you know who Infinite Red is and you need a React Native consultant, if you can afford them, it's basically a done deal.
yeah,
If
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love everything they do. I've been following them since like 2009,
Oh,
and they're yeah, they're awesome.
they are, and Jimin is like a super cool guy, and I'm sure the other guys are as well. But this is the thing that I kind of asked him when I interviewed him was like, okay, yeah, obviously inbound works amazing, and of course you have to put in the work long term to build this brand and to build that inbound pipeline, so to say. But that takes time. Like I'm not gonna like if I need to feed
Yeah, 100%.
this month, if I need to feed myself this month, I'm not gonna go and make content, or I am gonna go and make content, but I don't expect whatever content I make or whatever operators I make to actually bring me leads this month. It's gonna bring me leads 6 or 12 months from now, but not now. Which is why I'm super interested in cold outreach because I think to a certain degree, and I'm not sure how much you agree, but you kind of have to do both. You have to
Hmm.
find a balance. What do you think?
I don't know if your assumption that's not going to have immediate payoff is true.
Oh,
Actually, well, have you validated it?
I am making regular content. I do not have any sort of big open source stuff.
Right. So, like, I'll draw like a sort of a parallel, and this is something that I've been thinking a lot. Is On X, the designer community does this really well, right? They build in public, as in they actually build and design and roast and publish their work
Yeah.
quite frequently in public to just showcase their capabilities and showcase the possibilities of what their skills are. And I mean, yeah, if you consistently do this for a month, most likely you'll have one or two clients.
Okay.
Um, Dev people, it's a little bit harder, right? Like if you're doing a backend project, what are you going to show? If you're doing client work, for example, I'm working on this huge project. I love to show people what I'm working on, but I can't because it's not mine.
Yeah.
And most of our clients kind of are in stealth mode. So until 6 months down the road where I actually deliver the project in whole, I can't really showcase anything that's not publicly on their website, on their marketing website. And I work with such early stage founders that a lot of times their public website doesn't even exist. So
Yeah.
I'm actually really jealous of what the designer community have been able to do. Is just building public, showcase their
Yeah.
work, um, and it works. I know people that's gone from starting from zero and quickly within 2 or 3 months by building on X, they 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 get consistent
Yeah.
design customers. So
Ah,
like I do believe that that is a, a working model for you to get inbound leads, especially on X and social media and even on Reddit. Um, I just don't have a idea for the developer, such as ourselves, to
I
do that.
have an idea. Yesterday I had an interview, so I'm recording 4 interviews this week, which is kind of crazy. But yesterday I had
Nice.
an interview with this guy, Christian Montoya, who's like a product manager for MetaMask, and he
Yeah.
is a very prolific builder. Like on the side, he
Mm,
always just builds random stuff, an NFT collection, an app that helps you like make interactive stories, all sorts of just stuff. And part of why he got the job, part of why he has a good career is specifically the fact that he just built
yeah.
stuff on the side. So I'm thinking, as a consulting shop, what if you just launch these mini startups,
Yeah.
like kind
Yeah.
of what Hacker already does,
Yeah.
basically indie hacking for the purpose of finding clients. Like
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
it is more work than design, but I think it goes kind of in the direction of what you're saying. And you're right that I didn't do this and I just assumed it wouldn't work.
um, you're absolutely right. Like the next evolution of, yeah, very near in the future, let's say like 6 months, I want to become somewhat of a product studio where we're churning out MVP type projects. Um, the core problem is that all of my time is focused on marketing and sales and getting
Yeah.
inbound leads. Like, yes, it's cool for you to be always spinning up side projects, but then again, like if you just find one or two clients and then just showcase what you've done for your clients, it's
Yeah.
nearly the same thing. It's just that it's projected about 6 months into the future, right? So right now, all of my entire focus is delivering this project for my customer by the end of the year. So we're already like mid October. In 2 months, I will have this like big announcement. I could be like, "Hey guys, look what I built,"
Yeah.
right? So there's a delicate balance. Is the side project is a good approach, but it's not very scalable,
Yeah.
right? It's good if you're a single developer that's focused on creating these side projects, and you'll establish yourself in the community as like someone trustworthy and with authority. But it's not very scalable at an agency level. Um, Product studio is more of like a side passion, as in most of us are builders. We
Yeah.
will love to just build on cool things. So
Oh,
it's a side passion, right? Um, yeah, so it's just finding a delicate balance between side projects, client work, marketing, co-outreach. Yeah, it's a lot
it's a lot
for
to
a person.
and you don't really have a
Yeah,
clear answer. It's just trade-offs and you don't really
it's
know
just
until
trade-offs.
after you've done it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So like I'm right now, I'm benching a lot of this one project that I'm working on. It's really freaking cool project, and it's going to be sold to some of the largest Shopify stores. So once I can done it, I can use that to get feedback. I can get testimonials and just snowball that into more and more projects.
Going into enterprise, I know we're on time. We have about 5 more minutes, but going into
Sure.
enterprise, um, what's your strategy? Are you just going to go to events and try to meet people and slowly build up
Yeah.
relationships? Is that kind of the way you go about it?
Yeah. So I mean, the way that I'm approaching it is a lot like startups. Fundamentally, you have to understand why they will want to work with you, right? Like there's always some processes in the purchasing cycle. So for example, enterprises have an end of year budget. End of year budgets are use it or lose it. Essentially, that's leftover budget that's allocated at the beginning of the fiscal year that they have to use up or they don't get it next year. So usually this kind of end of year budget is not that big, right? But not that big in terms of enterprises, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. They can't. This amount of money is not large enough for them to kickstart a large project, but also like they don't want to just not use it. So this is when they're very open to work with smaller
No.
agencies like myself, right? So once you kind of understand the secret, now you just need to find the right person to talk to. Be like, hey, you're the head of digital transformation at this bank, at this global bank, right? Um, your end of fiscal year is coming up. Do you have any end of year budget that you can allocate to an unknown smaller agency like ourselves? We're willing to work over the holiday break.
And that gets your foot in the door. And now next year, when new budget comes in, you might be able to get a bigger project because you've already done work with them. You're on the list.
Exactly.
You have probably, hopefully, done good work, and they like you. I see,
Exactly. Yeah.
I see the strategy.
Exactly. Yeah. And then like you can also partner up with larger agencies. So that's another strategy. We're looking at. Well, we have a few relationships um, with like large marketing agencies. Marketing agencies are usually like one-stop shop for brands and stuff to basically handle anything, right? Because usually at enterprise level brands and stuff, they're all of their initiatives tie back to sales and marketing to like pitch some products, right? So they
Yeah.
don't really go to dev shops. They go to marketing agencies because their
Okay.
initiatives are marketing related,
Okay.
right? Whatever it's like, oh, we want to build this cool program to incentivize our users to spend more. That's a marketing initiative. But then like it's supported by tech things and software that they build.
Okay. So basically, you have to figure out a way to be close to the profit center and potentially partner with marketing agencies
Exactly.
you work with.
Exactly. Yeah. So you become a vendor of software for marketing agencies.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense as well. I was under the impression that corporations also like to hire for like internal tooling where it saves them cost on different internal processes.
Yeah.
Does it happen?
Of course, right? But the thing is, it's all about timing,
Yeah.
right? How do you know that this is happening? Like
You don't unless you know somebody in the company.
exactly, yeah. Unless you have an internal champion that's like, hey, we're actually undertaking this. Well, that's what digital initiative, the head of digital initiative does, right? Like they take on these digital initiatives, and that's essentially what they do is they're trying to improve some processes internally with new digital initiatives, and usually it's like dashboards and stuff.
Makes sense. One last question before you go. Aren't you afraid that by going into enterprise, you will have these big ass customers? Instead of having many small ones, you're gonna have a few big ones, and then if you lose one, you're for lack of a better word fucked because 20-30% of your income.
Yeah,
Aren't you
yeah.
afraid?
So it's kind of like it's like a prisoner's dilemma with enterprises, right? Once you get onto a vendor list, they're also kind of afraid to go out to look for a new vendor,
Oh,
right? Like it's kind of like you're locked in because like it's really hard to get onto the vendor list. So most people don't take the time to sell to enterprise, or you must have some kind of relationships. And then for enterprise, for like the guy that's actually procuring the vendor, he's also lazy, or they're also lazy,
okay, fair enough. I
right?
Especially in corporations where you can just coast, makes sense. Is the vendor
Right?
list one real quick question? Uh, is the vendor list like internal to one company only, or do bigger companies usually also kind of share vendors, or does it happen? Do you think?
That I don't know. That's a good question, but definitely like if you're on a vendor list of this bank and then you try to pitch it to another bank, I mean, just be like, hey, I'm already on this bank's vendor list. We're already approved. They've already worked with us.
Yeah,
I mean, that lends to some credibility.
fair. Let's wrap this up. I really want to have you back maybe in 6 to 12 months as you develop this enterprise strategy more, and we can
Yeah,
talk about your reflections on it. That will be really cool. But
for
let's wrap
sure.
it up. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this one. Uh, I hope you get a lot of value from it because honestly, I get like a few very actionable pieces of advice from Paul, which I'm going to implement with my own agency as well. Now, this time, I don't want to promote lead software, although I've kind of already done. I just want to tell you that about my website with alexaser.dev, where I have all of my interviews collected in one place with articles about them as well. I think it can be pretty neat and useful to get a summary of the key insights of each article or like of each interview, in a written form.